Hello and welcome to a speed paint. I guess this doesn't really count as painting this time. What I'm doing here is making a base that I'm going to draw a whole bunch of Stoneclan characters on top of for the new allegiances that I had to make. The reason I'm doing this is because Upon Each World, finally broke, and I'm tired of not being able to make the cats non-binary properly and other quirks of the website, so I very unskillfully made an entire new one. But my new one didn't have easily accessible pictures like my old one, especially seeing as I'm going to have to slowly and manually make pages for the characters myself, so I decided that making small pixel art references for the characters might be a fun way to visually represent them. I'm also adding little color references to it, just because Flash absolutely destroys all of my reds and yellows and whatnot. The early sketches look very different from what I eventually settled on. I wasn't really sure what kind of style I even wanted these to be in at first. And while some of these early sketches go in a direction I think looks better or that I like more, I think I went with what was better suited for Stoneclan's general style that already exists. The headshot is 50 pixels by 50 pixels, which I chose arbitrarily because it was the size my avatar was allowed to be on certain websites as a kid, and that's, nostalgic. The end result ends up taking much less space than 50 pixels, but that at least leaves me a bit of room to add fluff and slightly bigger ears to a few characters. Geez, the head looks weird here, though. I'm definitely glad that I changed it away from this, because, what is your everything doing, cat? While I did like the cute, kittenish look that this had at first, I really don't think that it worked for what I wanted, which was the Stoneclan characters. And while all cats are cute, baby kittens, and I don't see any problem with making Warrior Cat's characters super cute, I wanted the default sprite to look a little bit more aware, especially seeing as I wasn't really planning on changing the eyes or expressions of these. So I changed the eyes to have a little bit more of a stylized look to them. So now it's still cute, but the cat looks a little bit more alive and a little bit less like it was just born. I didn't plan how I was going to color the line art, or if or not I was going to shade it, or anything like that. So you can see me doing all of this on just one layer, as I honestly tend to with pixel art if I'm doing it for some other purpose. But because I was going to recolor this cat like 50 times, I was setting myself up for disaster. Not that it wasn't an easily fixed disaster. Although the nice thing about pixel art, even bad pixel art like I'm making here, I'm not gonna claim to be any sort of expert because I'm really not, is you can just mess with something until you like it well enough. There's a lot I wish I had changed before I actually got started on the portraits, but I only really thought about it like 30 portraits in after I had been staring at this cat for a long time. So once I have it all figured out and decide that I like the sprite enough to go forward with recoloring it a million times, I sort out all the colors that it's made out of and put them to the side and save the template, and I'm all ready to start, and I realized very quickly that this is way too many colors to be sitting around color replacing on a program that does not react very kindly to me trying to copy paste things. I can actually feel my frustration messing with these sliders as opposed to any sort of traditional color picker for this option too. This one is the leader of Stoneclan, Snailstar. I chose the leader and Medicine Cat based on what would be funny in the beginning because there was very little lore and very little investment in the characters for my patrons. It was just kind of a thing on the side for maybe the first year or so. More recently, a lot more people have joined who really enjoy it and get into it though, so it's grown into something more complicated, but still just as genuinely silly. I really like Stoneclan because it gives me a way to be invested in entertaining people. Naturally, I like to entertain, it's why I'm here to begin with, but it's always more rewarding when you can, personally see the reactions of the people you're entertaining. The comments are kind of like that, but the atmosphere of something like Stoneclan and the Patreon server is more like, hee, how can I change this to excite everyone? What can I do in here to stir everyone up? What will people be happy to see? Because it was so tedious to make Snailstar the way I did by recoloring almost every separate pixel, from here out I separate all the bits of my cat template into layers. I make a layer for line art, shading, base color, and eyes, and I never end up touching the eye layer. Oh, I also make one for highlights. But I never end up actually touching the eye layer, but I do end up changing the opacity of the others, so it's still good I separated it. I set the line art and shading to various levels of multiply, and later on you'll see me messing with these a lot because the purple-gray color that they were made in looks terrible on top of all cream, orange, and yellow cats. The Patreon in general opens a door for me to treat YouTube as more of a fun thing that I organize, as opposed to like a solitary box where I talk to myself and then upload it on the internet. I guess my role in Stoneclan is something more of a dungeon master, but a dungeon master who can take what you just said and cut 3 words out of it so that you're saying something different now. Which, by the way, is something that I'm doing to them quite a bit, like almost once an episode at least, I'm doing that to someone. And Stoneclan is never going to be art, it's always going to be super derivative of Warrior Cats, and most of my decisions regarding it are all around how much excitement I can cause in my Patreon server as opposed to what's best to watch. But that's really how it was always designed. Stoneclan itself was made entirely on impulse, though, because once during a general voice call for a video, 4 of my patrons recorded lines as if they were kittens with deep adult voices and sent them in the chat. This was, if I remember correctly, because the previous discussion in the channel was as to why I separate kits and apprentices from the adult cat roles in the short video calls. From that point on, I set up a channel in Patreon called Join Stoneclan, which was for sending completely random voice clips that could be used for silly videos. Largely because I noticed a lot of people who always just barely missed the voice call posts, I wanted to give them a chance to be in something. So then, as time went by, this channel grew from being something where I could, listen to all the voice clips easily and try to use almost all of them at once every time, to a channel with almost 10,000 files sent in it. The way it works now is that once someone's recorded, and if they're still a patron at the time, I try to include them in the first video possible so that they get assigned a cat. I don't let people make their own cats generally, because I want to make sure all of the cats are very easy and simple for me to draw without worrying too much about their designs, and that their names are all different enough from each other that I don't have like 20 cats whose name starts with the same prefix. It also makes it easier for me to just slip the cat in somewhere if it doesn't have any established backstory that I have to work with. But we consider it a Moon Kitty assigned OC, and they can do anything they'd like with these characters as they do any other character that they've made themselves, like use it in Art Fight, or put it on Toy House, or redesign it to their own personal tastes, as long as they don't mind that the character in the videos will continue having the original design and might go in a totally different direction than what they intended or end up in unintended situations. I don't have a lot of trouble with the patrons' characters' names because I'm thinking about them when I'm making the videos, but there are 2 that I play, Barkclaw and Doofer. Barkclaw is the brown one you'll see soon, who has like kind of a Moon Kitty stripe going down to her nose, and but she's all brown, and she's got green eyes. And Doofer is like this fluffy blue and cream character. But I can never remember their names because I use them so interchangeably and so randomly, and they don't mean anything, And sometimes I'll write in a script, okay, Barkclaw says this, and I'll call her Barkface because I always call her Barkface, and then I'll draw Doofer. And so their voices are interchangeable, everything about them is interchangeable because they're completely meaningless to me. Poor Poppy Song's spots are always changing. I know it should be like the easiest design in the world to remember. There's 2 colors, there's 2 spots, but I can't remember it for anything. Although I think she's been a little bit more consistent lately. A few months ago, I set up a ClanGen file with all the Stoneclan cats in it for my patrons, but I forgot to give any of the cats existing experience levels, so they all opened the file and had the cats die rapidly on border patrols and whatnot. It's on my mind because I'm in the process of fixing up the file at the time I'm recording this with the new characters that were introduced, alongside fixing a few designs and traits. But, yeah, here everyone, here's a file with all of these characters on it that you voice, and, they all die, like, Moon 1, because they don't have any experience. Something you'll see me doing a lot here is making the hair really puffy and then going, wait a minute, that is way too big, and then just flattening it, just grabbing it and flattening it and then barely changing it afterwards. Very few cats in Stoneclan have pink noses. Very few cats in any of my videos have pink noses, and this isn't because I don't like pink noses, it's just because I can't remember them. Like, I just genuinely cannot remember if I gave a character a colored-in nose. Like, Sandstorm and Squirrelflight, very, very early on, like, very, very early on, I decided it would be cute if, like, Sandstorm, Squirrelflight, a couple other characters had a nose that was, like, they're darker than their fur, as opposed to being, just a black nose like I give everybody else. And I forget. Constantly. Just constantly forget that. And it's... I don't know if it's because it's separate from the fur, or if it's just because I color in the nose, like, first before I color in the rest of the body parts. Like very often I'll color in nose and eyes while I'm doing line art as opposed to while I'm coloring in characters. But it never sticks in my head. So Stoneclan characters by default, and also characters in my short videos by default, they don't have pink noses, they don't have colored in noses, because I can't remember that they do. I mean, obviously a few of them do have them, and I like the way it looks, and I want to use colored-in noses, but I can't remember. I can't remember I've even given them out. I actually had this speed paint going a lot faster, but at the frame rate that it's at, which is 30 frames per second seemingly, it just looked really bad. My cursor was kind of teleporting all over there. It looked like it was some sort of progress slideshow as opposed to an actual speed paint. And I was looking at my files like, why? Why is this so choppy? Why is it so, like, forced looking? And I had to make it faster and faster and faster and faster to actually fit within any sort of reasonable time limit. And then I realized that the reason for this is because I recorded a little over 8 hours of footage of me working on these sprites. And, that's a little silly. I didn't even realize that I spent 8 hours on these. I had... Like, I had absolutely zero awareness that I was doing it. So, yeah, this wasn't... Here's the thing. I didn't even do all of them on the day that I recorded this. I did about half of all of the cats. So even though all I am doing is modifying a base over and over and over again, I spent actual hours on this. And I didn't even realize that I had. It went completely over my head that I had spent hours on this. There's a few things that I did thoughtlessly within early Stoneclan that I'm trying to fix. For example, some people ended up as kitty pets or loners as opposed to being cats in the clan. I feel like now that this is getting a lot bigger and more people are involved, I want to make sure that the characters are all centralized as being warrior cats in Stoneclan as opposed to being disconnected from the drama and having to figure out what to do with their kitty pet character. So characters like Sparrow, Mittens, and Dusty, I want to work towards either joining the clan or being involved within the clans more often. Additionally, a few characters early on got mates, and while it was a joke then, the activity got larger and more people are involved, and I don't want that to happen anymore, so that everybody can continue being comfortable within the activity and not have to worry about anyone acting creepy or looking for cats for their cat to date. So if two characters stare lovingly into each other's eyes, they are just very good friends in the eyes of Moon Kitty. It's kind of like I'm the Warrior Cats editor, but instead of making it so Ravenpaw and Barley can't be in love, it's literally every single character regardless of their gender. While romance stories could make for some fun content, I really just don't want to go down that route because, you know, first of all, everyone's of varying ages and it's really just not appropriate for those characters to be in relationships with each other. And second of all, because I don't want it to derail the whole thing, and I know that it would. Third thing I want to change is I want to stop giving the characters dead parents. Really, really early on, I made a whole bunch of dead parents for characters so that in the website Upon Each World, which broke, which is why I'm even making these sprites to begin with, the website Upon Each World, made it so that the way that you set characters' siblings is by setting them to have the same parents. And so I made a whole bunch of dead parents for these Stoneclan cats to have. And now, like all of the existing ones are very integrated into the story and whatnot, so it's not easy to remove them, but I really just want to stop giving everyone dead parents. It's not really even like because it's a problem, it's just kind of weird there are so many dead parents in Stoneclan at this point. It's to the point where when somebody is making the backstory of their character, very, very infrequently do they even mention the dead parents, because everyone who wasn't introduced as like a kit or an apprentice has dead parents in the whole set. So instead, my strategy is either introducing characters with alive parents or just kind of, skipping the whole parent issue altogether just because it's getting a little bit tacky, I think. And obviously it was mostly only done for the sake of Upon Each World, and now that we're not using it anymore, hey, we got enough Stoneclan cats, we don't need to worry about this anymore. Welcome to July, by the way. July is the month where we do not put Apple Heart in the thumbnail, so this better not end up being the video thumbnail. In fact, I'm going to make a video thumbnail this time so that this specifically is not the video thumbnail, because Apple Heart always ends up in the video thumbnail. Like all shaded images, these don't really work well as actual references. They're only really good for color blocks that I put to the side. You'd have to look at the episodes themselves for an actual picture of them or a full body. That said, I honestly really regret making the entire far ear shaded because it's already had the unfortunate effect of tricking people into thinking that that ear is a different color than the first ear. Even more confusing with characters like Antlerthorn, who had two different colored ears to begin with. Hi, Ocelot. Yeah, hello. Meow. This character's name is Old Man. Prefix old, suffix man. He's another character that I made just to give someone parents on Upon Each World. Unfortunately, everyone loves him, so I made him a headshot even though he doesn't deserve it in any capacity. Not sure if I got better or worse at drawing out the fur tufts as this went along. I like a lot of the earlier ones, and a lot of the later ones I'm like, was I just dying? Was I running out of energy for this? Because I hadn't realized I had still been going on making these after 8 hours of making these. Sometimes with art, it feels like if you do a repetitive action long enough, you don't really remember what your original intentions with doing that action even were. Like, a lot of the fur tufts I've been working on here, I've been kind of dithering the edges of them and making them look softer and such, but for some reason I'm also starting to kind of ignore shading in favor of dithering because it's starting to become such an automatic activity that I'm not even thinking about it anymore. Fogbreeze, I think, is the only cat in the entire thing who's just one color all the way through with no markings whatsoever. If it were entirely for me and I wasn't concerned with if or not patrons liked their characters or thought they were special enough, I probably would make like half of these characters just solid color cats. First of all, because it's easy, and I don't need to worry about anything. I can just draw a shape and slap some eyes on it and be like, yeah, that's the character. And I really like doing that with characters for short videos and Canon Warrior Cats characters, because not only is that what they actually look like in the books, it's also just, nice to be simple once in a while. Anyway, these are the last few I recorded. Thank you very much for sitting through my incoherent ramblings about Stoneclan and poor quality sprite artwork and the like. I actually finished all of these since recording this, and I put them all up on the new Stoneclan Allegiances website. I'll link that in the description if you want to scroll through all of these heads.